Hello, everyone, and many thanks for joining this stream today on this Saturday. Have a wonderful day and a great weekend, dear friends. Today is, of course, 13th of September. Now it's 12 o'clock, middle of the day by Moscow time, and as always, I have prepared quite a number of news on some major developments and hopefully you will find news segment informative and useful. And after that, after news segment, I will join community chat for a little while, as I always do. I will just remind you, dear friends, that tomorrow we will have a big community chat when I'll take time to go through comments through chatter, and react on as many comments and the questions as I can. So yes, tomorrow is a big community chat fundraising stream. Today is just ordinary stream. And before I start, let me just thank you all, dear friends, for your kind words and congratulations with your birthday yesterday. I received many kind words yesterday and today, this morning too. So truly grateful. Thank you all for your kind words and that attention. And that's being said, let's go through some news now. In case you want to use a super chat, you want to make sure that I would not miss your question. As you know, there is a super chat available on Rumble. There is a round feature there, and you can use it. Or otherwise, use capital letters, please, sir. So that will make it a little easier to spot the question or the comment that you want to highlight. Okay, that's been said. Let's start with the news segment. And first of all, I'll give you an update on situation around the assassination of Charlie Kirk in the US, outspoken, conservative, leading voice, I will say, especially among youngsters in the US. And many Russian media outlets, by the way, and worldwide also, of course, including RT, reported that Kirk's murder suspect was apprehended. His name is Taylor Robinson, according to law enforcement agencies, and you can see on your screen now mugshot of this person. The FBI has released photographs of the suspected assassin of the U.S. Conservative activist Charlie Kirk following his arrest. The suspect was identified by Utah Governor Spencer Cox as Taylor Robinson, young native of their state and a student at the university where Kirk was shot. A family of friends turned the suspected assassin into the Washington County Sheriff's Office on Thursday evening after a family member told them Robinson had confessed to them or implied that he had committed the incident, Cox said at the press conference on Friday. And even before him, Trump, on air, by the way, he was invited on Fox News, that was, if I remember correctly, and he hinted basically that father of this person convinced him to go to police and surrender after his convention. Allegedly, his father is a priest. That's what I take from Trump's statement. But questions remains, by the way. Questions remains, of course, because very few people, based on comments at least that I see on internet, very few people actually believing that this was some soul psychopath that went complete crazy and assassinate Charlie Kirk. Very many questions are rising, of course, and many commentators are linking this assassination with Israel, especially because in private conversations, Charlie Kirk actually had said, allegedly, that if he will take a more critical approach to the Israel for numerous reasons, he might be assassinated. So he had a fear of that. And also, dear friends, among conservative voices in the US, prominent conservative voices in the US, Charlie Kirk was one of the few that actually began changing his rhetoric in regards to Israel. He was very unhappy when US struck Iran. According to some reports, he was trying to use whatever influence he has to recommend to Trump not to agree on the strikes on Iran. Charlie Kirk was very unhappy with the situation around the Epstein files, right? And I'm quite sure Charlie Kirk had an internal moral dilemma in regards to Israeli actions in Palestine, right? On one hand, he was a prominent voice when it comes to protecting, as they call in the West, Judo-Christian values. I don't understand this terminology. What Judo-Christian values? I have nothing in common with Jewish people, right? When it comes to religion, they have their religion, I have my religion, and our religions are different. Otherwise, we would be in the same group, right? We would have the same religion. So I don't take this approach that the West is cultivating, that there is some Judo-Christian values, by the way. No, there is none, right? Jewish, some radical Jews, by the way, don't even consider Christians to be human beings. So what we are talking about here, right? So that's a whole different story. But nevertheless, I'm quite sure Kirk had some internal struggle in regards to what this fascist state that Israelis was doing in regards to Palestinian people and many other peoples, by the way, all around Israel, right? And maybe for these reasons and some others, that many commentators on internet are not buying this stuff that this person was acting on his own. My take on the situation is that this guy was set up, most likely, I will say, by Israeli secret services, maybe with their cooperation with the CIA. This guy was set up, by the way, as a scapegoat, right? Maybe he was given a rifle. He was indoctrinated then. Maybe he was given a rifle and even some bullets, fake bullets, by the way, right? And he was set up to make a shot, right? So he probably believes, actually, if my reading of the big picture is correct, he himself probably believes that he shot Charlie Kirk, while in reality, probably there was another sniper group somewhere there that actually take the shot, right? And I'm saying this based on some videos, for example, that I see with my own eyes on internet when certain people, two individuals, for example, in particular, that does not look like they are some random individuals or the students, by the way. I mean, some jacked elements, potentially with military training. They are doing some hand signs, by the way, right before, second before Charlie Kirk actually was shot. These people are doing some hand signs. It looks like they are signaling a shot to be taken. And according to reports, I'm not a military person, but according to people that know this matter, these signs are ones that snipers are using. Yet again, this is all my speculations, by the way. You might agree with this, you might don't, but I clearly see some connections there, right? So most likely Charlie Kirk was set up as a scapegoat. He was given a rifle, he was given maybe some training even, and some fake bullets, by the way, that make noise but don't actually shoot nobody. And simultaneously, actual snipers were somewhere other in other area, and they did make a shot, by the way. And now custody has a Charlie Kirk. They have a shotgun that he had, his handprints, right? They have everything now. This operation was set up quite perfectly if it was done by Israeli secret services with assistance of US secret services, right? And speculations probably will last forever from now on, because we're never going to learn the truth. Quite sure about it. Something similar, according to some investigators, was done with JFK, by the way. Some say that Lee Charlie Oswald was set up as a scapegoat, right? He didn't actually kill Kennedy, because from a position that he allegedly supposed to be and make the shot, it was impossible to do such a shot, right? There was some other groups of snipers that actually take the shot, but eventually we know who was blamed officially, right, for this. So something similar might happen in regards to Charlie Kirk's assassination. I think Israeli secret services are behind it, by the way. Obviously, I need more information to prove it. I cannot prove it, by the way, right? But that's my speculation. That's my understanding of what happened, right? And Israel, if Israeli regime was actually behind this hit, then they send there, and many people gonna think about it, right? Many people, by the way, gonna think about it, and this was a very strong message to everybody, especially in the U.S., and especially among conservative voices, because Israel don't really cares about left voices that much, right? They are actually using left groups for some other purposes, but they were kind of scared that among conservative voices there was a shift, isn't it? Shift. Candace Owens, become very vocal in a criticism of Israel and Israeli crimes against humanity, against Palestinian people and the humanity. Charlie Kirk was not happy with Israel, with many topics that were directly or indirectly related with Israel. Other prominent voices, by the way, in America First community, Dave Smith, for example, who is Jewish himself, right, is tremendously critical of Trump's administration's attitude and approach towards Israel, right, and towards the Israel itself. And there are many others. And I think Israeli regime, Israeli secret services, Zionists probably began fearing that they might lose actually control over the mind and the mindset of the Republican public, and maybe they did take this shot, by the way. Maybe my take on that, right? Well, on the matter, dear friends, as I said, Trump made statements.
Went to a U.S. Marshal, who was fantastic, by the way, and the person was involved with law enforcement, but was a person of faith, a minister, and brought him to a U.S. Marshal, who was fantastic, and the father convinced the son, this is it. And again, I'm always subject to be corrected, but I'm just giving you, based on what I'm hearing, they'll give you a much more active. I just heard about it 5 minutes before I walked in. As I'm walking in, they said, looking real good. They have the person that they wanted. So
that's what Trump said about it, and some very strong statements are coming from administration members, and I'm going to show you another video, dear friends, with there some strict warnings towards it seems like leftist groups of all sorts. Let's take a look at these statements
that Charlie Kirk gave to me before he joined his creator in heaven.
And this is also official, by the way, of administration. This one.
He said that we have to dismantle and take on the radical left organizations in this country that are fomenting violence. That was the last message that he sent me before that assassin stole him from all of us. And we are going to do that under President Trump's leadership. I don't care how. It could be a RICO charge, a conspiracy charge, conspiracy against the United States. insurrection, but we are going to do what it takes to dismantle the organizations and the entities that are fomenting riots, that are doxing, that are trying to inspire terrorism, and that are committing acts of wanton violence. It has to stop. And my message is to all of the domestic terrorists in this country spreading this evil hate, you want us to live in fear? We will not live in fear, but you will live in exile. Because the power of law enforcement under President Trump's leadership will be used to find you, will be used to take away your money, take away your power, and if you've broken the law, to take away your freedom, Sean.
Well, that's quite a strict threats, actually. It's not even warnings, by the way, right? That administration in US is sharing now. They're going to use, I think they're going to use this situation to suppress leftist voices on the left. And let's be real here. Let's be clear, by the way. Very many people on the left side of the aisle are great people, right? Not all of them are woke psychos or something like that. Many of them are absolutely decent human beings that have absolutely legit questions and they are demanding answers. And as for example, in regards to Israeli crimes, as one example, right? And I guess one of their tasks, if behind this assassination was Israel, one of their tasks might be that, well, they might, first of all, they neutralize person that potentially was going to be bigger voice from conservative aisle that will go against their Israeli crimes, right? That will criticize Israel, and this will this scared Israeli leaders, I guess. And on the other hand, they will use now this situation, right, to basically green light or pave the way for White House to go on a crackdown on all the left groups, right? Especially serious ones, by the way. Especially serious left groups that do have a point in their criticism, right? And I'm not talking about some woke crazies. I'm talking about serious left-leaning public figures, commentators, some other groups, right? That are respectful, very serious people. And we might see some crackdown on the left, permanent left voices. And this is also tremendously will benefit whom? Israel, not the US public, by the way. Public will be divided even further. But Israel will definitely benefit from that because, well, they will shut down this way critical voices in their country that Israel uses as its enforcer, right? Without US, Israel wouldn't be able to behave with this impunity and commit tremendous crimes against humanity. We all know this, right? So that's how I see the situation, dear friends. Share your opinion, what you think. But this is gonna happen. This guy is a representative of the administration. Is openly threatening leftists. What the hell, man? Or do they think that only right-leaning people are 100% correct, and they're on the left side, they are not normal people or not decent people? This is wrong attitude. This is definitely a wrong attitude to have. But anyways, dear friends, let me continue with some other news now. Trump also made statements, by the way, that he will support investigation against Soros activities. And well, if true, by the way, I have no issue with that. Let's investigate Soros if he's honest, right? Because Soros and his Open Society Foundation is definitely a criminal organization that positions itself on the left side, but in reality, they are not left, by the way. They are tool in hands of CIA, right? They are tool in hands of CIA and Mossad. This was the case for decades, right? So Trump says that, well, we're going to investigate Soros, but do I believe that actually something will be done about it? Most likely not. You will find out different. You will see, but most likely, administration, U.S. law enforcement agencies don't go any further than just their statements on the matter, because yet again, Soros foundations, his institutions that he created were used on a regular basis and will be used on a regular basis by CIA, U.S. State Department, by Zionists of all sorts, and Israel whenever they need it, right? You think how they have so many assets all over the world. One of the ways how they infiltrated societies worldwide is Soros and his foundation. It's just factual, right? Let's continue with some other news. Well, we have this report from RIA Novosti that air defense systems overnight destroyed 42 drones that was launched by Kyiv regime to strike deep into Russian territory with assistance of NATO. Of course, I can give you some details on that. So from 42 drones that were launched to strike deep into Russia, 15 were intercepted over the territory of Rostov region, 12 over the territory of Belgorod region, 10 over the Volgograd region, all southern Russia, by the way, 2 over the territory of the Republic of Crimea, also southern Russia, and 1 each over the territories of Kaluga and Kursk regions, Kaluga, Kursk, and Smolensk regions. Also, when it comes to these terrorist attacks that Kyiv regime is conducting on a regular basis with assistance of NATO, yesterday Russian media outlets reported that NATO and Kyiv regime conducted yet another strike on Russian nuclear facility. This time, they launched drones towards a Smolensk nuclear power plant. And the report is that Ukrainian unmanned aerial vehicle attacked the building of an operating power unit of the Smolensk nuclear power plant. They were targeting actually nuclear power plant or nuclear reactor itself, right? The press service of the Rosatom reports technical means destroyed their drone at 3:52 Moscow time in the area of a third power unit. Rosatom noted as a result of the attack, several windows of auxiliary rooms were knocked out, including the startup and the reserve boiler room and refrigeration station. There were no damages or casualties. There were damages. I mean, these technical translations are too bad, man. There were no casualties as a result of this strike. The radiation background at the site complies with the norm. Law enforcement agencies are working at the scene. So nuclear terrorism, by the way, nuclear terrorism is becoming a feature that characterizes collective West now. Just recently, US targeted, together with Israel, targeted nuclear facilities in Iran. And for how long now? Very same US, UK, France, Germany, other NATO member states are providing assistance to their proxy terrorist regime in Kiev to strike Russian nuclear facilities. It's a regular occasion, and as I said in my previous updates, by the way, this is a disaster in the making. If globalists, neocons, and the rest will not stop this nuclear terrorism, they might one day actually create a nuclear disaster. And Americans may don't care, by the way, that they are oceans away. But and who knows if wind will take, if anything happens, if wind will take these charged particles to the US, it could happen. But when it comes to continental Europe and the UK, by the way, they are not safe, right? If any nuclear power plant goes off on the European continent, in Russia or in EU member states or in UK, then no country is safe. And Chernobyl disaster already demonstrated that, isn't it? Do we need another lesson? I don't think so. But yet again, tell these two globalists, neocons, and their puppet regimes in the collective West that are directly engaged in this nuclear terrorism, together with their proxy in the Kyiv regime. And dear friends, I'm quite sure Western media outlets, so-called media outlets, will say not even a single word about this nuclear terrorism that coming from the West. They will say no single word about it. Am I correct? If you live in the West, do you ever read anywhere in the Western so-called media, or did you hear on Western radios or the TV stations that NATO and their proxy regime on regular basis targeting nuclear power plants on Russian territory? Did you hear anything whatsoever about it? No, I'm quite sure about it. They said nothing. RT is also reporting that when it comes to terrorism of Kiev regime, there is another report about it that Kiev's special forces strike Russian rescue vessel, and they published video about it, by the way. Main intelligence directorate of Kiev regime targeted a rescue vessel that, theoretically speaking, could one day save Ukrainian sailors, right? It's a rescue vessel that will react on an emergency in the Black Sea from whichever country or whichever vessel that belongs to whichever country this emergency is related to, right? And they targeted this rescue vessel. They shared the video about it. They brag about it. So that is itself is quite illustrating, isn't it? What kind of elements they are. They are committing war crime, and targeting a rescue vessel, by the way, is the same crime as to target ambulance, as to use ambulance for military purposes or to target ambulance, right? It's a war crime. And they are committing war crimes and they're publishing videos about it because they don't care. They just don't care. The Ukrainian military intelligence service has claimed that special forces under its control struck a Russian Black Sea fleet vessel in the drone Black Sea Fleet vessel in a drone attack. The ship in question has turned out to be designed for search and rescue missions as well as aiding distressed ships. And you can see on your screen right now, dear friends, vessels that we are talking about. This is not a military vessel. This is typical search and rescue vessel. So attacking this vessel is a war crime. But those morons that are licking the boots of their NATO bosses don't care about it. And neither their NATO bosses care about it. When Western elites ever cared about committing crimes against humanity or committing war crimes? They never, by the way. In just last couple of decades, they killed more than 3 million people. And due to their criminal activity, more than 300 million people, according to reports that I see, were displaced. That's the Western world for you, right? That's what Western world did just in last couple of decades. You know, TASS news agency is reporting that Russian armed forces liberated their 3 settlements in the Dnipropetrovsk region in a week. Over the past week, their East military group. Okay. You just noticed this? Wow. Sorry, dear friends. This freaking technical stuff is. I was talking about this vessel. Let me show you right now, dear friends. That's the vessel, by the way. This search and rescue vessel that Ukrainian terrorists attacked with assistance of NATO. And that's the report about nuclear power plant. Dear friends, I have a new feature on my channels. In the description box, from now on, in the description box, dear friends, you can see links to most of the news that I will share. You know, sometimes it happens that in last minute I might add news, so I might not have time to add the link. But in general, whatever news from whatever media outlet I'm going to use, I will provide you in the description box on YouTube and Rumble with the headline of the news and with the link, so that you can go through that link and have a better look at the information if you want to, because I use Russian media outlets in your country. They might be blocked. If you live in the Western countries, there is a high probability that at least some of their media outlets that I am referring to on regular basis can be blocked. So use VPN to access. Otherwise, I mean, in the rest of the world outside of the West, all these links will work perfectly well. That's been said, dear friends. Let me continue with this news that over the past week, the East military group liberated the settlements of Kharoshe, Sosnovka, and Novopetrovskaya in the Dnipropetrovsk region, as the Russian Defense Ministry reported. And I also shared information about this progress of the Russian armed forces in Dnipropetrovsk direction. Let me show you area on the map, dear friends. So this is Dnipropetrovsk region. This red line that you see on your screen is a border between DPR and the Dnipropetrovsk region. And well, quite a number of settlements already are under Russian control, as you can see based on this map. This is Sosnovka settlement, by the way, that was liberated by Russian forces. Let me also show you Novo-Nikolaevka. This is Novo-Nikolaevka settlement that was liberated by Russian forces. And right before I started this stream, dear friends, reports were coming in that Russian troops established control over another settlement. Let me check the name of that village. Chernovoe, by the way. Chernovoe was liberated also. That's the Chernovoe settlement, also in Dnipropetrovsk region, by the way. Russian Defense Ministry did not yet confirm, I believe, liberation of Chernovoe, but maybe today or tomorrow we will receive this confirmation too. Clearly, Russian troops are advancing with accelerating speed in the Dnipropetrovsk region. Some military experts are connecting this with the Russian attempt to divert forces of the Kiev regime from other sectors. First of all, from Pokrovsk sector. This might be true, maybe not. We just don't know, by the way. All the military experts are speculating because none of them know what plans of Russian general staff is, right? But progress of the Russian armed forces clearly is very, very significant. Also, while map is open, dear friends, let me also give you an update on Pokrovsk-Mirnograd direction. I saw another report this morning from Russian media that Russian troops increased their presence in Pokrovsk city itself, and fighting is going on for city blocks now. And the forward units of the Russian armed forces are in the central part of the Pokrovsk itself right now. It's not just DRGs, but also regular forces, Russian DRGs actively operating in Mirnograd. Also, Russian troops advancing in Konstantinovka direction. And yesterday I saw reports about breakthrough of the Russian armed forces from a northern flank of Konstantinovka, and the Russian troops are conducting fights on outskirts of this city too. So there is a progress there. Also, big progress in Seversk direction. According to a number of sources, Kiev regime's forces flee the forestry area on the northern western side of this Serebryanka. I'm calling all this forestry Serebryanka forestry, but in reality it's divided, by the way, right? Serebryanka forestry itself is already under Russian control, but I call all this green area to be Serebryanka forestry. So Kiev regime had its forces in the middle of this forest, and they dropped their weapons. They ran away, basically, according to reports from a number of sources. This military map, for example, confirming these reports. And if true, then, well, Russian troops are basically on outskirts of Yampol, important settlement right now, and also Liman, by the way. This is significant progress of the Russian troops in Yampol and Liman direction, and also that's the Seversk. So if these reports are correct, then it seems like Russian troops are now in a position to conduct simultaneous offensive, this sectoral scale or local scale offensive operations in direction of Yampol, in direction of Liman, and in direction of Seversk from northern western side. And once Russian troops, dear friends, will establish control over their Dronovka settlement and their Platonovka settlement, well, I guess also Zakatne, it's not going to be easy because of the landscape. You can see, dear friends, there is a lot of forestry in this area and also rivers, right? Also rivers, but nevertheless, it's only a matter of time. Russian troops will establish control over the Dronovka, Platonovka, and Zakatne settlements, and then, well, Seversk garnison of Kiev regime is finished because they will be basically in operational encirclement, right? I guess leadership of this Western-backed terrorist regime already kind of acknowledging that they lost Seversk. All they will do now is send some low battle-capable forces in the Seversk direction to just slow down Russian progress a bit, right, to gain some time. But I guess they already know that while losing this forestry on the northern side of Seversk, they lost basically realistic opportunity to hold on to the city, right? Where is the Seversk, by the way? So yes, that's it, man. While losing this forestry, well, Seversk garnison was finished too by that. And also there was reports about progress of the Russian armed forces in northern parts of Kharkov region, dear friends, in Volchansk and Liptsy directions. Let's see if Defense Ministry will give us some additional information about it. But reports were that 3 units of the Kiev regime's brigades were completely destroyed in the northern parts of Kharkov region, and one big unit of 114th or one of the units of Kiev regime's brigade is in full encirclement in northern parts, in Volchansk direction, basically, and they probably will be neutralized in next several hours. Maybe I'm quite sure Russian side will give them opportunity to lay down arms and surrender. But if they will refuse, then I guess the Russian aviation will be called in, and this group is encircled in a forestry area. So Russian troops probably would not risk to have casualties. They will just call in artillery and aviation, and they will just obliterate that forestry area, and that's about it. So that's been said, dear friends. Let's continue with some other news, and we have this report based on Russian Defense Ministry that during the previous 24 hours, the regime's forces on line of contact lost more than 1,400 military personnel, almost 1,500. I can give you some specifics on that. So Ukrainian armed forces units lost about 1,465 servicemen in all areas of the northern military district in one day. This follows from statements by the head of their press center of the troops group. According to the head of the press center of Vostok group, Vostok is east, by the way, Alexei Yakovlev, their enemy lost up to 255 servicemen in 24 hours in zone of responsibility of this east group of forces. Ahead of their press center of the north group, Yaroslav Yakimian specified that in their zone of the group, Ukrainian armed forces lost over 180 servicemen. According to head of the press center of the west group of forces, Leonid Sharov, the losses of the Ukrainian armed forces amounted to 230 military personnel in that direction. In the Dnipro zone, according to, and Dnipro is a Russian, another group of forces. So in zone of operation of the Dnipro group, According to the head of the press center of the group, Roman Kadrian, their enemies' losses amounted to over 60 servicemen. And yesterday, dear friends, I read their article about one of the operations on an island on the Dnieper River that was controlled by Kiev regime's forces. And well, the Russian Special Operations team was directed in their island, and they went in, and basically entire group of enemy were neutralized. Literally, no one escaped. Majority were neutralized on the ground, and their survivors then tried to retreat and swim through Dnieper, and then they were neutralized with the drones. They had no chances, obviously, against special operations unit. They had no chance. They probably didn't even realize what happened or what was happening. So yes, battles continue, by the way, on 4 islands on the Dnieper River too, and Russian militaries are clearing island after island after island, and most of the islands on the Dnieper River already are under Russian control, and there are dozens of them, by the way, right? Also, let me continue. According to head of press center of Vostok or East Group of Forces, Alexei. Oh, I already read that. The head of the press center of a Center Group, Alexander Savchuk, noted that the losses of the Ukrainian armed forces amounted in the zone of responsibility of Center Group of Forces up to 500 servicemen. As the head of the press center of the Southern Group of troops, Vadim Astafiev, reported the enemy lost more than 240 servicemen as a killed and wounded. So overall number is more than 1,400, and this is conservative estimates, by the way, from the Russian Defense Ministry, because, as I always said, Russian Defense Ministry only counts when they have confirmed information, when they have objective control in the area. That means either they have a drone footage or they have actual data. There is a killed individuals, there is documents there that they have, and so on, right? So these numbers that Russian Defense Ministry is providing is very conservative, very conservative. That's why, by the way, just recently, when Defense Ministry shared information about overall casualty numbers of the Kiev regime in 2025, Ministry said that Kiev regime lost around 350,000 military personnel, while we'll remember a couple of weeks ago, Killnet, a hacker group, released the information that they get while hacking database of Kiev regime's general staff, that in 2025 alone, Kiev regime already lost about 700,000 troops. And there was, when they hacked this information, they have names of these people, photographs of these people, phone numbers of these people, addresses of these people, and coordinates of their relatives, right? So why is this big difference, you might ask, between a report of Killnet hacker group and the Russian Defense Ministry? And the answer is because Russian Defense Ministry is extremely conservative in its estimations. Always. This is always the case, by the way. Just a minute ago, a couple of minutes ago, I reported about liberation of number of settlements and progress of the Russian armed forces. Do you think Russian Defense Ministry confirmed that? No. All their sources, there is numerous sources that are reporting about this progress, that it is factual, this is a progress, but Russian Defense Ministry will take another day, maybe 2, maybe 3, and when Russian troops on the same direction will probably reach next settlement, well, Defense Ministry will say that, well, settlement before that already is under Russian control. That's what always happens, isn't it? And it's not bad, by the way. I'm not criticizing Defense Ministry for that. They are objectively, conservative institution, as they have to be, right? It's a Defense Ministry. So what else do you expect? Anyway, let's continue with some other news. Glad newspaper is reporting that, Kiev regime announced, by the way, imminent arrival of a Polish military delegation. That's how they call now troops of their foreign countries. Delegation of a Polish military personnel will arrive in Ukraine on September 18 to study methods of countering drones. Ukrainian Foreign Minister Andrei Sybiga said at the joint press conference with the Danish Foreign Minister Lars Løkke Rasmussen. And rumors are, dear friends, that it's not just Polish military is gonna arrive in Kiev-controlled territory, but also number of militaries from Lithuania, from Baltic Chihuahuas, by the way, Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia. And this is dangerous, isn't it? This is dangerous because Moscow was very clear. Any militaries from any country on a Kiev-controlled territory is a legit target. Moscow issued the warnings, not just once, not just twice, but on many occasions. And if Warsaw leadership in Warsaw, if Polish leadership is this reckless that they're gonna send openly their troops now to Kiev-controlled territory, well, they're gonna have losses. By the way, they're gonna have losses, and same can be said about Baltic Chihuahuas and every other NATO member state. They're going to have losses, and better they began preparing their public for what is about to happen. If this report of Sybiga is correct, this so-called foreign minister of Kiev regime, we will find out in upcoming days. Tass news agency, meanwhile, is also reporting that up to 500,000 soldiers of the Ukrainian armed forces are listed as deserters. 500,000, by the way. From 300 to 500,000 servicemen of the Ukrainian armed forces have left their units without permission, according to various estimates. This was reported by Tass news agency. This was reported to Tass news agency by Russian security agencies in Ukraine, and we have quote, in Ukraine, the program to return deserters to duty has failed. Until August 30, servicemen of the armed forces of Ukraine who left their places of service without permission could return to their units, avoiding punishment. According to latest data, about 29,000 servicemen returned by August 30, which is less than 10% of a total number of deserters in a total. Accounting to various estimates, they are from 300,000 to 500,000 servicemen of the armed forces of Ukraine in the Special Operation District Zone. Deserters, by the way. Overall, in Kiev regime's forces, there is 300 to 500,000 deserters, according to Russian security services, which is quite a lot and quite telling too. This indicates that whenever these forcefully mobilized people on Kiev-controlled territory have an opportunity to run away, they are running away. But not always successfully, because there are numerous videos on the internet when these Ukrainian soldiers that are trying to run away from Frontline being killed by their own comrades. Not their own comrades, by the way. They are usually killed by neo-Nazi formations and foreign mercenary units, right, that are operating as blocking detachments, not to allow forward units to retreat. But nevertheless, whenever they have a chance to run away, or to surrender safely, they are using this opportunity, because 300 to 500,000 deserters, that's quite a lot, right? Maybe significant number of them are killed actually, and the Kiev regime is designating them as deserters so that they would not pay compensations to the families of the soldiers. Also highly probable, of course, but nevertheless, at least 150,000 of this from this number is actually deserted, or maybe more. Also, dear friends, you're not going to be surprised to hear that the scum of humanity and the former UK Prime Minister, to the shame of this country, Boris Johnson, yet again arrived on the Kiev-controlled territory, this time in the temporarily occupied Russian city of Odessa, occupied by Western regimes. And I'm quite sure his mission is to once again instruct his Ukrainian Nazi collaborators on how to best sacrifice even more residents of this so-called Ukraine in the interests of the globalists and the European ruling elite under the control of these globalists. Am I correct in my comment there that I published this morning when I see this report about Johnson arriving in Odessa? I think I am correct about it. And next to Johnson, this individual is Goncharenko, who is a mass murderer, Ukrainian Nazi and a mass murderer. He is he was directly involved in a tragedy that happened in Odessa, in a trade union building, when dozens of civilians, anti-Maidan protesters, basically, were burned alive by this Nazi scum. So, something to just keep in mind that Boris Johnson is in Kiev control territory again. Whenever he arrives in Ukraine, nothing good comes out of it for people of that former Soviet republic. So I guess that's one of the reasons why I paid attention to this information and many others here in Russia. And well, dear friends, before I continue, let me once again highlight that this media project is only exists as long as I have your support. So if you like my work, if you want to see this project surviving, then please consider to support. You can do it through several means. You can donate through PayPal and Boosty. You can subscribe to my Patreon page or page on Boosty, and during the live streams you can use Super Chat feature on Rumble or become a premium subscriber there. Links are on this video description box and in the pinned and will be in the pinned comment after the stream. Just a reminder, and let me continue now. Well, unfortunately, number of viewers during the streams are dropping right now on YouTube. There is only 122 members, which is bit upsetting, by the way. I don't think I'm providing any less information on any less valuable information that these big channels do. And how come that they have thousands of people during the live streams, and on my lives there is only at best 200 people? What the heck, man? Is this number correct even? I don't know, man. But it is a little upsetting, by the way. I'm doing I'm trying hard, man, to do some job here, but anyways, let's continue. And maybe I should stop publishing videos on YouTube and focus on Rumble completely, man. Maybe that's the way to go forward. I don't know yet. Sklad newspaper is reporting that Trump does not rule out a mistake in a connection with the drone incident in Poland. And on this matter, and I reported about it yesterday, that Trump made such a comment, and the Prime Minister of Poland, Donald Tusk, contradicted the Tusk response to the Trump statement on the drones in Poland. The Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk has objected the U.S. President Donald Trump, saying that he does not consider the incident with the drones shut down in Poland a mistake. Trump said on Thursday that the incident with the drones being shut down over the Poland could have been a mistake. The head of the White House also noted that he was unhappy with the situation and expressed her hope that it would end. We have a quote from Tusk here: "We would also like the drone attack on Poland to be a mistake, but it is not," Tusk wrote on the social network X. Tusk claimed on Wednesday that dangerous drones had been shut down over the Poland, calling them Russian, but provided no evidence. And we all know all this story, by the way. Well, Warsaw is going against Trump, Tusk against Trump. Okay, let's see how this will end. Eventually, it only takes, by the way, one call from deputy of one of the Trump's advisors. One call, and Tusk will call and beg for mercy, right? What the hell, man? Tass news agency, meanwhile, is reporting that NATO is preparing military defense response to this drone incident in Poland, and they're going to send more troops, by the way. This was a clearly false flag operation. Some drones, as I said yesterday, some drones maybe were diverted by radioelectronic warfare systems. But for that exact situation, I'm quite sure globalist control regimes in Europe, their special secret services, already had prepared drones, pre-planned positions where they're going to put these drones as if they just fell, right, and were launched by Russia at that particular day. And they did it. They did it, by the way, right? And now they are using this false flag operation to deploy more troops to a border with Russia and Belarus. They are using this false flag operation to deploy not just troops, but also military equipment, first, and among them fighter jets that are capable of launching cruise missiles. I reported a couple of days ago, but I mean, when it comes to troops, by the way, yesterday I did share information that Poland is moving around 40,000 troops to their border with the Belarus. Germany plans to deploy more troops, also ground troops. But what is also important, very same Germany plans to deploy its Typhoon fighter jets in Poland. France also made a statement that they plan to transfer Rafale fighter jets to their Poland. I'm quite sure UK will do the same, and we should keep in mind that they already have their presence, by the way, in Poland. These NATO countries, Western European NATO countries, they already have a large presence with their air force in Poland, right? Not just countries that I mentioned, but even Netherlands has planes in Poland for whatever reasons, right? And they are increasing number of planes significantly. And they have also high presence in Romania, right? And you might ask, yes, but what you want to say by this? Well, point is, dear friends, that in recent days, I said many times, not just in recent days, but for how long now, I'm saying that collective West, globalist control regimes in the West are planning next phase of escalation against Russia. And during this escalation, they will launch a massive, on one side, they will conduct massive drone and missile strikes on Russia. Simultaneously, they will use their assets inside the Russia to do large-scale terrorist attacks, also sabotage operations, all sorts of. They will use their secret services to orchestrate massive cyber attacks on Russian Federation to create a chaotic situation as much as they can. Probably during this next phase of escalation, NATO countries will go ahead with the attempt to conduct a decapitation strike on Russian political and military leadership. And to do this, they need a large number of planes, by the way, especially to launch cruise missiles, right? And we already know that Germany has transferred their Taurus missiles on the Kiev control territory and its military personnel, obviously, because Kiev regime cannot operate with those missiles. And this information was confirmed by Foreign Intelligence Service of the Russian Federation. So I have no reasons to doubt this report. We also know that Washington made decision to transfer to Kiev regime thousands of long-range cruise missiles, right? And I guess significant number of them already are on the Kiev control territory. And we know that UK and France already were using against Russia Storm Shadow and Scalp PG cruise missiles. And if you connect all the dots, well, you will see a situation that, they have a lot of missiles now potentially to launch at once, right, to achieve maximum result, but they need planes because Kiev regime itself don't really has that many planes to launch so many cruise missiles. And that's why they conducted this false flag operation, in my opinion, to justify deployment of additional fighter jets from the NATO countries, right? And whenever this next phase of escalation will happen, I don't think NATO gonna claim the responsibility, right? They will say all the missiles were launched by Kyiv regime's air force. While in reality, Typhoons, Eurofighter Typhoons, Rafales, and other planes will be used that European NATO countries have in their hands. That's my take on the situation, and if I see these risks, I'm quite sure Russian think tanks that provide information to Kremlin, they also see such risks, and hopefully Russia is preparing. Russia is preparing because we are about to witness absolutely unprecedented scale of escalation between NATO and Russia. Unfortunately, I have no doubts about it. I would love to be wrong. I hope I am wrong, but unfortunately, there is no actual indicators that will give me some hope that my reading of the big picture is mistaken. Some very bigger escalation is being planned by the West, and we're going to witness that very soon, I think. And when it comes to Western escalation with Russia, it's not just a military escalation, but also West continues to try whatever they can to destroy, to harm Russia economically, financially. And Trump himself went to say, by the way, that he will hard strike Russia with their anti-Russian sanctions. Let me share with you short video of his statements. That will be better than so.
Went to the table so quickly. You remember the famous.
So is your patience run out with Putin?
Yeah, it's sort of running out and running out fast, but it does take two to tango. It's amazing. When Putin wants to do it, Zelensky didn't. When Zelensky wanted to do it, Putin did. Now Zelensky wants to, and Putin is a question mark. But we're going to have to come down very, very strong. It's the only one. This is the one, because I've always had a great relationship with Putin. This is the only war that I haven't solved. Now, let's get into Gaza, because that's another one. So those are two that are.
Before you move on, can I ask you,
complex.
what is clamping down on Vladimir Putin?
Well, it'll be hitting very hard with sanctions to banks and having to do with oil and tariffs also. But I've already done it. I've done a lot. Look, India was their biggest customer. I put a 50% tariff on India because they're buying oil from Russia. That's not an easy thing to do. That's a big deal. And it causes a rift with India, And remember this. This is a Europe problem, much more than our problem. The other thing I've done, Brian, and I know how you feel and very strongly about it, and I understand a lot of people do it, a lot of people don't, frankly. But we were spending $350 billion on a war that was across the ocean. Europe was spending $100 billion. It's still a lot of money, but it should have been equalized, at least equalized, or they should have spent more. But I did something. As you know, I went to NATO, great relationship with all of those NATO countries, and I got them to raise from 2% to 5%. And then I got them to pay for anything that all of our costs now are being paid by NATO. So NATO is very, they're rich countries. And they're now paying. We're sending missiles and things to NATO. NATO's paying us, and they're distributing to where they want, which is, in this case, Ukraine.
Mr. President.
Which is a big saving. That's a big difference. We're not spending. But you know what I want to do?
Yeah.
I want to stop it for a different reason. Because now, I guess you could say we make money. I don't want to make money, but we're making money because. But I want to stop because they're losing 6,000 to 7,000 soldiers every single week. And they're not American soldiers. They're Russian and Ukrainian soldiers. And some people in the towns. But the big numbers are the soldiers. They're losing. Last week, they lost 7,018 soldiers. A little bit more Russia than Ukraine. But they both, they've lost 1.5 million soldiers fighting back and forth. I want to stop it on a human basis. You know, their souls, they're Russian souls, they're Ukrainian, they're not American.
Yeah.
But I just feel I have an obligation to do it. And that was the one I thought was going to be the easiest of the 7.
Right.
And that turned.
Okay, man. We already have heard all the nonsense that Trump quite well can come up with. It is anybody's guess from where he's coming up with these freaking numbers. He already claimed a couple of times that Russia lost millions of soldiers. Every week, some 7,000 losses. What he's talking about, man, does he understands that he is a president of US and should be correct in his statements, factually accurate. But anyways, it's Trump, isn't it? So yes, he is threatening, by the way. He is threatening Russia with the sanctions. It's not just military escalation that we should expect, but also more sanctions and tariffs and so on. And first of all, as far as I can tell, they are focused on to force European countries, by the way, to go ahead with more sanctions and tariffs. Because, and I see why they are doing it, American leadership. I think they want to accelerate the industrialization of Europe, and what a better way to achieve that, to destroy relationships between Europe now and their other major economies, right, that are cooperating with Europe. They destroyed Europe's relationships with Russia, and they want now same to happen in a trade between Europe and China, Europe and India, Europe and other important trade partners that they have, right? And on this very matter, by the way, we have this report that, according to Bloomberg, the US is to call G7 to develop mechanisms to seize Russian assets. Okay, this is I already reported about demand from Washington, right? That they want 100%, 50 to 100% tariffs to be imposed on China and India. And also on top of that, by the way, in attempt to destroy European economy, accelerate the industrialization, they have this idea that they're going to force Europeans now to basically steal whole Russian frozen assets, which will completely undermine European financial and banking system, completely, right? That will be end of it. And maybe Trump will succeed in this. So U.S. administration plans to call on their group of 7 countries to develop a so-called legal mechanisms for the seizure of Russian assets in order to use them to finance Ukraine's military expenditures. This was reported by Bloomberg, citing sources. And Washington was pushing for this, by the way, during Biden's administration too. Remember, Biden's administration was also trying to force Europe to steal frozen Russian assets. From 300 plus billion that they froze in the West, more than 200 billion is in European jurisdiction, in Brussels jurisdiction, right? And Washington wants these assets to be stolen and then to be spent in US on weapons that US happily will continue to sell to Europeans so that they will transfer to the regime, right? And while doing so, they will make money while selling weapons, and they will also simultaneously deindustrialize Europe, destroy their financial and the banking system, its reputation, which is already not in the greatest place, right? And by doing so, further accelerate the industrialization. And you know where majority of companies majority companies that are shutting down their manufacturing plants in Europe, they are migrating to North America, and there is a statistics that confirms this, right? I have reported about it quite a number of times. Also, TASS news agency is reporting that the EU officially extended the sanctions, all sanctions that they come up with, all 18 package of sanctions, They have extended all of them for another 6 months. And as I reported yesterday, in 2 days, on 15th of September, they will present 19th sanctions package. And in regards to that 19th sanctions package, everyone is wondering now if Washington will succeed. Did Washington succeed or not in terms of forcing Brussels to impose sanctions on China and India too, tariff sanctions and so on, and other countries that are cooperating with Russia? We will find out in 2 days. I guess initially draft will be published, and then shortly after, in few days, sanctions package itself will be fully adopted. Tass News Agency is also reporting that EU intends to tighten visa policy towards Russians. Okay, I mean, already very few Russians actually are traveling to Europe, or many European countries, by the way, especially in the southern, especially in southern Europe, already felt lack of Russian tourists, right? Because their tourism industry was benefiting greatly, right, from Russian visitors. Greece, Cyprus, Italy, by the way, France, they lost hundreds of millions, potentially billions, by the way, potentially billions in last several years due to a tremendous decrease of number of Russian tourists. But I guess Brussels wants to go further than that. They want to build their iron curtain with Russia, and well, they will make it even more difficult to get your visa, Schengen visa or visa to any European country. The European Union is preparing tighten its position on issuing visas to Russian citizens. This was reported by Politico newspaper, citing a representative of the European Commission. According to this representative, by the end of the year, EU will publish new regulations for the bloc's countries, which will contain stricter recommendations for issuing visas to Russians. It is noted that the eastern countries of the European Union have long lobbied for the adoption of such restrictions. However, the issuance of visas remains within the competence of the EU member states, so the European Commission cannot impose a total ban on entry of the Russian citizens into the bloc. And they want it, by the way. They want it, right? But few countries in EU, leadership of few countries, I guess, vetoing total ban on Russians to ever visited Europe, which is, I mean, crazy, isn't it? It is crazy. I mean, it's fascism, Nazism, racism, everything combined, right? But that's what European elites were always: fascist, Nazis, racists, right? That's their name, actually. So no one should be actually surprised by this. So yes, they are trying to build iron curtain with Russia, and good luck with that. Good luck with that. Moscow will definitely not retaliate in the same kind. I'm quite sure Russian border will be open for for hardworking, law-obeying citizens of Western countries, if they want to come as a tourists or to migrate to Russia or for a business trip. Russian border will be open, but soon I guess they will have an issue with their own governments that will not allow them to travel to Russia. Quite a possibility. Quite a possibility. And there are a few more news, dear friends, on an economical topic. I reported yesterday already, I believe, that the Central Bank of the Russian Federation dropped interest rate by 1 percentage point yesterday from 18th to 17th. Expectation was that drop would be a little higher than that, but well, head of Russian Central Bank, Evgenia Nabiulina, is Elvira Nabiulina is a very tough expert financial expert, very conservative, and despite all the attempts to somehow influence a central bank's decision with all sorts of calls to drop interest rates for at least several percentage points, it did not work. And Nabiullina, by the way, come up with the statements in regards to situation in a zone of competency of central bank. Let me give you some key statements from her. About inflation, Nabiullina said, inflation expectations remain elevated and show little sign of decline across all population groups, businesses, and financial markets. Expectations of citizens could be negatively affected by double-digit increase in utility tariffs and rising gasoline prices. Since the beginning of 2025, inflation has declined significantly due to monetary policy. Of course, inflation declined, by the way. Central bank did play a role in this, isn't it? With this tremendous level of interest rates, and there was other reasons too, of course. In August, the overall price index decreased largely due to seasonal decline in prices for vegetables and fruits. Adjusted for seasonality, overall price growth in August was 4% year-on-year term. This is a target for central bank, by the way, 4% inflation for a few years to be reached. This does not mean that the central bank has achieved their target indicator. Their slowdown is inflated. Inflation was largely due to one-off and volatile factors. In recent months, sustainable inflation rates have remained in the range of 4 to 6%. It takes time for a downward trend in inflation to take hold. It is necessary to assess the extent to which monetary conditions contribute to reducing inflation. About monetary policy, she said that today, in addition to reducing the key rate by 1 percentage point, the central bank had a pause in easing the monetary policy on its table. With their elevated inflation expectations and the expansion of their corporate lending, budget uncertainty remains. The slowdown in inflation since the beginning of the year, the decline in external demand and economic activity give a general direction to lower the rate. You need to be careful when making betting decisions. The central bank currently estimates the neutral rate at 7.5, 8.5 percentage point. It's so long before we will actually reach these numbers, it seems like. But nevertheless, about GDP, Nabiullina went to say that GDP dynamics were somewhat lower than the central bank expected. In the second quarter, GDP growth is closer to a lower limit of the regulator's forecast for 2025, 1 to 2%. Commerzant is adding information. The economy will continue to grow this year and the next, albeit at a slower pace. The more the economy overheats this year, the more noticeable the slowdown in growth will be. So she is still not happy with the level of that they manage, economical bloc managed to cool down economy. She wants economy to cool down even further, which is one of the reasons why many people here in Russia, especially business circles, love to hate Nabiullina, but she is very conservative, by the way. She is one of the best central bank heads right now in the world, one of the best experts in the field, right? And also tremendously conservative. And she just don't cares about her political or whatever else statements, right? He is calculating her decision based on numbers. That's it. That's all she cares, right? And she's very conservative. So she's sending the message, right, there, that we have to cool down economy. And look what she also says there. more the economy overheats this year, the more noticeable the slowdown in growth will be. The pace of economic growth will accelerate again when the Russian economy comes out of overheating and potential catches up with demand. So what she's saying, by the way, is she's calling all these big businesses that demanding from her interest rates to be dropped in the hope that will somehow weaken the Russian ruble, because Russia is export-oriented economy mainly, right? And exporter companies hate when Russian ruble is strong. But Nabiullina basically is saying that, you know what, invest more in the economy so that demand will be met, right? And that will deal with the disbalance in the economy, so we would not have to deal with the overheating. And in that case, well, I will drop the interest rates. Sure, she is a bold man. She is a badass central bank head, and she don't afraid nobody, right? And she is telling to all these billionaires, right, and everybody, well, invest more in the economy. So in a couple of years' time, demand will met with production or supply, right? And their balance will be reached in economy. We will have no issue of overheating. And in that case, well, I'll give you what you want. I'll give you low interest rates, but not before that. That's what she's saying, in my understanding, right? Although she's also hinting that little by little, indicators are showing that some small drops in interest rates might continue to happen, right? But if anybody expects that in 1 or 2 years' time interest rates going to be lower than digit numbers, no, it's not going to be the case. It's just not possible. If the big businesses will listen to Nabiullina, if they will invest, right, more, well, they will manage to help economy to balance itself out, right? And in that case, in 2, 3, 4 years' time, we might actually see interest rates being dropped to lower than double digits. But anyways, let's continue with some other topics. There attempts to accelerate economic growth without balancing supply and demand will lead to accelerated inflation, she said, which is logical. The assertion about the technical reasons in the Russian economy is debatable, but there is a cooling. So she's admitting that all the steps that economical bloc of the government took did influence the economy in a way they were hoping for. They were intending. They did manage to cool down economy a bit, but still not happy, right? Still, they want to cool down economy a little further so that demand, they will be at least somewhat balance will be reached between demand and supply, right? But yet again, she's calling big businesses to invest more, and they are doing, by the way, due to sanctions. These multi-billionaires, they don't know what to do with this money, right? Or at least money that they had to plan to invest in the West. Well, they're gonna do with it something, isn't it? So they are already investing in Russian economy big time. Maybe first time since the collapse of Soviet Union, Russian, this richest class here is more focused on investing in Russia than abroad. But nevertheless, Nabiullina is incentivized them to invest more. And they will, I guess, they will, because, I mean, they have so much money, by the way. They don't need this money to sit in a bank somewhere. And so, they will make much more while investing, right? And there are also, dear friends, RT is reporting that Russia and China planning a clearinghouse to avoid Western. This information is coming from Economical Minister Silvanov. So let me give you some details. Russia and China are working to set up securities depository to rival Belgium-based Euroclear and Clearstream. Finance Minister Anton Silvanov has said in an interview with the Izvestia published On Thursday, Silvanov said it is important to build an independent payment infrastructure in response to Western sanctions. Russian investors previously held their funds in European clearinghouse through Russian National Settlements Depository. Euroclear and Clearstream stopped transactions with their NSD and froze its accounts after sanctions were imposed against it in mid-2022, preventing investors from accessing their assets. The Bank of Russia has estimated that around 5.7 trillion rubles, $66.8 billion remain blocked. Silvanov said the role of the new depository would be assumed by the planned Shanghai Cooperation Organization Development Bank, which would enable Russians to invest in foreign assets and foreign investors to finance projects in Russia. We would like this bank, perhaps on its basis or by itself, to create opportunities for our investors in our countries to freely buy and sell securities in any countries. In other words, to perform such an independent depository function, the finance minister explained, and this is great news. Of course, this is great news. Less dependence from Western financial and the banking institutions means more success in real life, right? This is true for Russian Federation. This is true for every other country in this world and every business from this world, right? So some positive news here also. I hope. I mean, there are some steps. I was advocating for creating alternative financial and the banking system to the tremendously weaponized Western one for so long, isn't it? Because this is so important for the entire world, right? And I was upset when last year during the Kazan BRICS summit, no announcements were made about some big steps in this direction, but small steps actually are made, right? And this information is also about yet another step in the direction of creating this alternative financial and the banking systems for this world. And well, based on the speed of developments, I guess it will take maybe another 5 years, maybe 10 years, but eventually we will get there. Eventually we will have a truly alternative universal financial and banking system in this world that will serve everybody from this world, from Western countries or rest of the world, right? Without being politicized and weaponized as a Western financial and the banking system is, unfortunately. And so I will end this news segment, dear friends, on this report. Hopefully you did find it informative and useful. And so dear friends, I will join community chat now. There was a donation on a Boosty during the stream, and let me highlight this donation. Donation from Alexander G. It takes just a minute, dear friends. So this is a donation from Alexander G on Boosty. Happy birthday, buddy. Thank you very much, Alexander G, for your support. Truly grateful. And many thanks, of course, many thanks to everyone that congratulated me and for good wishes, kind words. Truly grateful, dear friends. Thank you. I received many kind words yesterday and today. So thank you very much for this. And Thank you very much, Alexander G, for your donation. Also, 806 rubles is $10, right? It's a $10 donation. So thank you very much, Alexander. And also there was a donation on PayPal, dear friends. Heidi, thank you very much for your generous donation of $56. Truly grateful. Thank you. And there was no comment there to highlight. So thank you very much, Heidi, for your donation. And dear friends, I will join now community chat. And let's have a conversation. As I said in the beginning, dear friends, you can use super chat feature to highlight, if you want to support, of course, and to highlight your question or commentary. I'm not gonna miss super chat because it's just my wife will make screenshot and she will give it to me. There was no super chat on Rumble, at least for now. So I will join community chat straight away. I see Nikos made the first commentary. Levan, I am sorry to say, but this was not a geopolitical motive. This was caused by the left, who have demonized us, the right in every corner of their media and their entertainment. Well, I can see what you mean, Nikos. I'm very critical of this BS propaganda of the lefty so-called media that demonizes traditionalists, demonizes conservatives, Republicans, as if they are, all of them, by the way, become Nazis and the fascists and the racists suddenly, which is not true, of course. And there is a great deal of responsibility on the so-called media in the West for divide that they are creating in the societies, right? And that's why in a couple of my updates, I did say that something has to be done in regards to this so-called media that is weaponized, right? This is not really media outlets, by the way. These are institutions that are weapon in the hands of whoever controls it, right? And usually these groups that control media in the West are very far from interests of the societies, right? Interests of the people. Globalists control media. Globalists are main force, right, in control of media. Let's be real here. In US included. And that's why they are using these tools for themselves. If Washington, there is a battle, isn't it, between US political class, America First forces, let's say, and European globalists, by the way. There is an actual war between them. And if Washington tries to reindustrialize itself, for example, on expense of European economies, well, globalists that are based in Europe, they want to do opposite. They want to weaken US. All they want from US is to continue to serve as their enforcer. That's it. They don't care about US citizens. And to weaken US, to have a leverage over the US, to infiltrate US as much as possible, you have to divide. What European elites were doing for the last 3 to 5 centuries, divide and conquer. And they are using very same tactic in US too. They are dividing and conquering. They don't care about left ideology. They don't care about right ideology. They don't care about none of it, right? All they care is to maintain their dominance, right? So something has to be done about this so-called media. That's why I'm using this terminology, so-called media, because it's not the media, really. So I can understand what you are talking about, Nikos, but nevertheless, my personal take, is that there is a high probability that the Israeli secret services were behind this terrorist attack that was conducted against Charlie Kirk. That's my personal take. Partially, I did explain in an update why I think so, but I think it was the Israeli hit. Nikos is also commenting, Charlie Kirk is gone because of his views that men cannot be women, that free speech and their debate is not their problem, etc. Yet again, Charlie Kirk was targeted by left so-called media. He was painted as some racist, Nazi, fascist. I did not really pay much attention to U.S. commentators. I knew what Charlie Kirk was. I knew I had information about him, right? I have seen a couple of videos, but I'm not gonna lie, by the way, I did not really pay much attention, right? Because it's a U.S. internal stuff. I'm not that interested in that. But I know he was a prominent voice, especially among young Americans, right? And young conservative Americans. And he was targeted by the so-called left-leaning media for that, left-leaning public elements, public individuals, and so on. But yet again, don't fail, Nikos, don't fail to trap that was set up, one of the traps that was set up by whomever was behind this killing. They want you to consider left-leaning people as your enemy. And they want left-leaning people to consider right-leaning people as their enemies. Divide and conquer. That's what they want. So it's none of my business, of course, what U.S. citizens will do, but I would recommend them to never, ever consider their fellow citizens, no matter on which political platforms they are standing on, never to consider as their enemies, because they should not be divided. And I will tell this to all the societies, by the way, worldwide, right? I don't want no harm for U.S. citizens, by the way. For U.S. political class is a whole different story, right? And I'm quite critical of Western elites in general, but I don't want no harm to ordinary people like us anywhere, right? In U.S., in Europe, anywhere. So therefore, they are not asking my advice, but I would, my recommendation would be, don't take your fellow citizens to be your enemies. Some of them being brainwashed and are acting extremely irresponsibly, yes, but don't take left side. If you are a right-leaning person, don't take all the left-leaning people to be your enemy, because they are not. And I will say the same to leftists that or liberals. Never ever take everybody who is on the right side as your enemy, because they are not your enemies, man. You all people have one enemy, and that enemy is the Western ruling class that has no care about you. So what we are talking about here, so we have to be always very careful. It's easy to blame someone to then use collective responsibility, but you might create consequences can be dire if any society will go ahead with such attitude. And Alexander G is commenting, and now Ben Shapiro, 100% pro-Israel on everything, is ready to take over TP USA, Turning Point USA. Yes, I mean, he made a statement about it, isn't it? And there is a quite a number of indicators, by the way, why I think that behind this attack, this terrorist attack, was Israeli secret services, potentially with cooperation with the CIA, because they are in bed with each other, isn't it? Mossad and CIA. So, yes, Ben Shapiro, but he's losing. He's losing. Ben Shapiro and his Daily Wire company is losing big time, isn't it? Because people are waking up slowly but surely. People are waking up and they're realizing that, well, Ben Shapiro is actually not America first. He's Israel first, right? In every picking topic, he is Israel first. And I don't think this is a right position to stand on for a citizen of US. I don't think for anybody, for a citizen of any country is a correct stand to be not your country first, but some other country, and it's a mistake, right? But Ben Shapiro don't care, sir. But yet again, I don't think Daily Wire can survive. I don't think Daily Wire can survive, and they are going down. Personal opinion. I cannot stand Ben Shapiro, man. Before he was completely illustrated, I have watched a couple of his episodes, his updates, and some videos with him. But now I just cannot stand it, and I cannot waste time on people like that, because you're not gonna get no honest answer, nothing, right? So what is the point to waste time on people like Ben Shapiro, man? To listen to them, I mean, makes no sense whatsoever. And I think many people worldwide are in US and worldwide have the same opinion. Dear friends, sir, please use capital letters, sir, so that I will spot easier your question. Or, as I said already, you can use what is the name? Rant feature, by the way, on Rumble, or super chat on Rumble to send your question. I'm scrolling now through chat, and if I see capital Q or capital letters, I will stop straight away. I'm going through chat afterwards, by the way, because whenever I have time, I'm taking my time to go through comments. And as you know, I read comments. I always do, by the way. I don't know. Some commentators are saying that they never read comments because, well, someone might write something negative and it might influence and this and that. What the hell, man? Why people become this sensitive, man? So many times I have seen some shit being written about me. Sorry for my French, but I mean, some troll may come in and write some BS and okay, and what? And what? If I see it, I delete the commenter. Maybe I will block. If comment is too insulting, I might even block the person. But I would not lose sleep over that for sure. But in vast majority of cases, it's your community members sharing opinions. So why you not gonna read this, man? I never get this, man. This attitude that I don't read comments. I mean, really? It's your community. What are you talking about? I don't know. So I read comments, and I'm learning quite a lot from members of our community, and I think this is the right way to go. And I'm reading comments not just on YouTube or Rumble, by the way. I read comments on. Unfortunately, on my Telegram, dear friends, I was forced to shut down comment section because of these freaking spammers, right? All of you who are subscribed to my Telegram channel probably see dozens of times these freaking fake accounts that are posting some spam stuff. Whenever I see it, I delete it once, twice. I was writing under almost every my post disclaimer that be careful. There is scammers, full of scammers, right? These platforms. Eventually, I just get so tired, dear friends, that I had to turn off comment section, and if Telegram will deal with this issue, right? then I will reopen comment section again. But it was crazy, man. At least Telegram should make sure that you cannot create an account with the same name. At least this should be done, for God's sake, right? Because spammers are creating fake accounts with the names of already existing ones. They are copying, basically, right? And beginning to spam all over the place. And Telegram is losing quite a lot because of this. But so yes, on Telegram now there is no comments, but on my channel, but on other channels where there is a staff, isn't it? They have a staff, big channels, by the way. So there is always moderator on the channel. So if anyone spams, they can take it out straight away. But because I was unable to stay on Telegram constantly. I just had to, for the safety of community, so that no one will fail to these spammers, I just had to shut down this comment section. But others do have a comment section. They have a staff, and I read comments there too, because I want to know what people thinks, man. Smoky Sally is commenting, Levan, we do see what you are showing on their screen. We do not see. Sorry, Smoky Sally. At one point, I forget to switch. I know. My apologies for this the technical errors that happen time to time. I try to be more careful. Maybe I need some little rest to be more focused. Ideally, I should take one day off. Just any day, one day. Just don't touch notebook, don't read no news, no nothing. But in this business of news and political commentary, you just cannot do this. Sometimes you might not be able to do update, but even then you have to read the news, watch, listen to prepare update for next day, right? So Bold Eagle is commenting, the media is poison. Well, that's what they do. They poison minds of the people, right? Hearts and minds of the people. These so-called media outlets. All they do is divide people. And that's why I'm saying we as ordinary people, we should not allow these hostile entities that are using different tools, NGOs or so-called media and others, to divide us, right? Because that's how they control us, in general, divide and conquer, And unfortunately now I can see that many people in US among conservatives, traditionalists will be tremendously angry on left-leaning people, but they cannot allow these hostile entities to divide the society. So they cannot allow themselves to fail to disrupt, right? And I will say same about leftists, man. They cannot treat their fellow citizens that are right-leaning that they are enemies. They are not enemies, man. You are citizens of one country, so take care of each other and take care of your country. What the hell? Who cares if you have completely different opinions on anything? I mean, okay, it's cool, man. We are not programs, isn't it? Or robots or something to think the same way about everything. We are people. We should not agree with each other on everything. Sometimes we agree, sometimes disagree. Okay, that's how life works. I see a question from Gracie Knoll. What do you think Ukraine will look like when this war is finally over? I see two scenarios, Gracie. One is that, and I'm quite sure this is the most realistic scenario, After this conflict will end, I will say 90-95%. There will be no more Ukraine on the political map. Literally, there will be no such a state on the political map as Ukraine, as we knew it, right? Western Ukraine probably will be occupied by NATO countries or be reclaimed by NATO countries like Poland, Hungary, and Romania, and the rest of the Ukraine, one way or another, but will join Russia Federation. That's the most realistic scenario, in my personal opinion. I can explain why I think so, but it will take too much time. And the second possibility that I see is that, well, I said that this is 90-95%, isn't it? So this other 5% max is that, well, Western Ukraine will be controlled by NATO, will be reclaimed by Poland, Hungary, and Romania. All the territory from Kharkov region to Odessa region, potentially with some parts of Chernigov, Sumy, Poltava regions. Kharkov region, Dnipropetrovsk region, Nikolaev region, Odessa region, plus some parts of Chernigov and Sumy region, Poltava region, some others maybe. This will join Russian Federation, 100%, by the way. I have no doubts about it, right? And maybe Ukraine will maintain quasi-statehood as Kiev and surrounding territories as a landlocked quasi-state, if Moscow will allow this to happen. But in any case, if Ukraine in this landlocked state will remain on the political map, it will be exclusive in the zone of Russian sphere of influence. So maximum what West will manage to do is to establish control of the Western Ukraine. That's it. No outside of Western Ukraine, NATO will be allowed in any way, shape, or form. Either entire territory will join Russia, or from Kharkov to Odessa for sure, and Kiev and surrounding couple of regions will be Russian satellite state, basically, quasi-state. I would prefer Ukraine to be divided between West and Russia completely, because there is no need to maintain this creation of the Bolsheviks, my personal opinion. Western Ukraine used to be part of Poland, Hungary, and Romania in different periods of the 20th century. So let them deal with that territory. And the rest of the Ukraine is a historical Russia, by the way, and should be part of Russia. That's my personal take, but. And I think that's exactly what is going to happen, one way or another, but that's what is going to happen, I think. Because yet again, and longer this conflict continues, more reasons I have to believe that that's exactly the outcome that we're going to see. Because if Kiev regime, if globalists would agree to capitulate now with Russia, of course, Russian terms will be not as harsh as, let's say, in a year's time from now. So longer this conflict continues, Russian terms gonna get more and more harsh, and eventually Russia will just say, you know what, Western Ukraine, we don't care, deal with it. The rest of the territory is historical Russia and belongs to Russia and should be in Russia. I think that's where we're gonna end up eventually. Kiev is the capital of first Russian state, by the way. Kievian Rus, right? So what we are talking about here. Okay, I'm looking for capital letters, by the way, to spot the question. I see, you see capital Y, and I spot it. SS Kobe is commenting, sanctions have diminishing effect over time. If they don't hurt in the short term, they don't typically get worse over time. I agree with you. already like three years past, isn't it? And the Russian economy continues to grow, and this is quite telling. Almost everything that West could sanction is sanctioned, and now they are focused on targeting Russian trade partners. There is a massive assault on India, and New Delhi is withstanding this attack. And I think New Delhi set the trend. All the other countries will do the same. So Western ruling class basically failed in everything, in every attempt to harm Russia, right? To achieve their strategic defeat of Russia as they are dreaming of. They failed big time in this direction. Unfortunately, they provoked this war and prolonging this proxy war against Russia, but they lost. They lost, and sooner they will realize that and come to and agree to Russian terms to de-escalate, the better for everybody, I think. And there was also donation on Rumble, dear friends, super chat or rant on Rumble. Let me share with you right now. Let me share with you, dear friends, right now. Dead Reckoning is commenting, you talk about Bolsheviks like they are someone else. Do most Russians hate the Bolsheviks? Here in Russia, Bolsheviks are, majority of society don't thinks about Bolsheviks, right? Because when you say Bolshevik, this word is associated mainly with the time frame between revolution, maybe a little before revolution took place and the civil war ended, right? After civil war, it was communists, right? It was a communists began dominating word to address certain groups of people, right? And Bolsheviks, that's how I see also. Bolsheviks were these revolutionaries, right? And the leaders of the Bolsheviks, by the way, most of them were foreign assets. I'm 100% convinced in that. Lenin was a foreign asset, I think. And the traitor of the Russian Empire, by the way, he committed treason of the country that he was a citizen of. And all the other Bolsheviks around Lenin, they all were traitors. My personal opinion. They committed treason, literally treason, against their own country. And I have many reasons to believe that all of them, or majority of them, maybe one or two people among our initial Bolshevik leaders, maybe one or two were actually, idealists, but majority were foreign assets. After all, it was Germany, isn't it, that financed Lenin to move from Switzerland to Russia. And I guess German secret services did not even hope that this individual would be that successful in destroying Russian Empire. But he ended up being that successful. Of course, it has to do not just with the activity of these Bolsheviks and some other destructive forces, but also with their royal family here in Russia, government of Russia, elites, Russian elites, right? Unfortunately, they lost their connection with the society I guess in some ways, right? And therefore Bolsheviks managed to use this sort of this disconnect between elites and the people to gain popularity, right? To gain force. And they successfully overthrown a royal family, right? And rest is history. And killed the royal family, by the way. Rest is history, right? So Bolsheviks, to me personally, is affiliated with this destructive force. All this destruction and negativity that happened little earlier before October Revolution happened, and then civil war on top of that, right? Bloody civil war. So that's why I have negative attitude towards the Bolsheviks. In my personal opinion, they were traitors. And they were factually traitors, right? They committed treason to the country that they were citizens of. And if I was living at that time, by the way, I would join most likely, if I had to join the sides, I would join White Army. That were royalists, right? I would not join Bolsheviks, man. For reasons, man. I would not commit treason. I would not commit treason, by the way. And Bolsheviks committed treason. And that's my personal take. When it comes to what Russians think, society here is divided on the issue of a communist party. Communist party is still second most popular party in the country. But yet again, modern day communists not really are associated with the Bolsheviks, right? These early Bolsheviks of 17 to up to 25, 30 of last century. So it's in the communists, that's a whole different story. And that's why I don't consider Stalin to be a part of this initial group of Bolsheviks leaders. Stalin was a different part, right? Stalin was actually creator of the, I will say, Soviet Union. Maybe not technically speaking, technically that would be Lenin, but Stalin actually built this country, right? And he was fighting majority of those early Bolsheviks, and he was considering them to be traitors too, because they were. But yet again, I mean, I have no studies on my hand there. I don't think if there was even a study conducted what people here in Russia think about this early Bolsheviks, by the way. And Ukraine is a creation of those early Bolsheviks. Ukraine is a creation of Lenin, by the way. Lenin created the Ukraine. That's it, right? So my negative attitude towards the Bolsheviks not necessarily is the same, means that I have a very same negative attitude towards the Communist Party. I am not a communist. I don't support Communist Party, right? And I don't think communism is a working idea. At least communism that we had in Soviet Union, right? Maybe in some other form it would work. I don't know, but I don't want state to be involved in all ways of life, right? State should do what state should do, but state should leave people alone and don't intervene in personal lives of the people. And that was not the case in Soviet Union. State was engaged too much in personal life. This is too bad, and state had too much control. This is not the way to go, right? So I'm not a communist, not a supporter of the communists, but nevertheless, I am left liberal. I consider myself to be left liberal, and the modern Russian communists, by the way, they are also left liberals. They just maintaining this name of the Communist Party. I don't know for whatever reasons, but they are left liberals too, mainly, like left, central left, left liberals. They are not really hardcore communists. That there were some in 60s or 50s, 60s, 70s. No, these are different, right? So yet again, in every country and in every time, communists means very different stuff, because interpretation of the teachings of the Marx, Engels, even Lenin, by the way, he was a clever guy. He was a traitor, in my personal opinion, but he was a clever guy. I'm not gonna say he was stupid, because he was very, high intellectual person for sure, right? And their studies, their books, still being studied now, right? Their theories, and so on. But anyways, Anya is telling me that I talk too much on matter. Okay. Svetlana Vladimirovna is not happy with me. Anya is telling me. О чем? Svetlana is not happy that I have a negative attitude towards Lenin. Well, what can I do about it? And I said what I said. I think what I think. Lenin was a traitor. He created Ukraine, and because of that decision, for example, how many people died now? And because of the Bolsheviks, how many million people died during the civil war? Is that nothing? I don't think that is nothing. I don't think that kind of, this is a crimes that they committed that cannot be forgiven ever. My personal take yet again, man. So, I mean, maybe Svetlana is disagree with me. Okay, that's fine. But I think Lenin was a traitor, and Bolsheviks, these early Bolsheviks, they were all traitors. Yet again, if I was living at those times, I would join White Army if I had to make choice, because I would never ever participate in a treason. You know. Okay, let's. I'm scrolling now. What I find their comments. Vladimir is commenting, Lenin was not foreign asset. You think he was not? You cannot know for sure, right? You tell me why Germany allow him to travel from and finance, according to many reports, to move from Switzerland to Russia. Why? Well, how it was Germany's business, anyways? What was their interest? They wanted Lenin and their other Bolsheviks, and among Bolsheviks, by the way, yet again, I'm not a historian. I'm just sharing what I know, right? And how I interpret different events. So at the time, there was all sorts of elements among these early Bolsheviks, not just Lenin, but also people that I will consider to be assets of British Secret Services, elements that had roots with you in US, by the way, in US too, right? These are later, I mean, early half of 20s and 30s, let me say, beginning of the century, 20th century, and then 20s and 30s were very wild, by the way, on the territory of former Russian Empire. And in particular, in case of Lenin, well, my guess is that German leadership, they organized transfer of Lenin from Switzerland to Russia in hope that he will actually succeed destabilizing Russia. Maybe they did not even dream about that Lenin would overthrow entire country, that Lenin will destroy entire country. Their hope probably was that Lenin, with his associates, will destabilize country so much so that Russian positions on the front lines in a war, in the First World War, by the way, and Russia was engaged in the First World War as an ally of Entente, right? Ally of UK, British Empire, France, and so on. So Germans probably were hoping that, let's put him here, maybe he will destabilize country, and that will help us on the front line, on the Eastern Front. And it worked. Lenin not just destabilized Russia with his fellow assets, but destroyed the Russian Empire from within. And this first government that they come up with capitulate basically before Germany. That's what I think had happened. Right? And that's why Russia is by many not considered a winner in the First World War, although Russia was an ally of a winning side. So, I mean, we might have different opinions about different parts of the history, but it's okay. Yes, Anya is saying that it's, Stalin then not changed many things. Yes, Stalin was a different figure, right? Stalin had nothing to do with people like Lenin and the rest of them. Stalin was a follower, yes, of course, because Lenin was leading their movement, right? So Stalin was a part of movement, but he had a very different background, right? Stalin had a very different background, and he was never by anybody considered to be asset of any influential forces worldwide. And he built the Soviet Union with methods that, yes, many people will say was too brutal, and they will have great arguments to prove their points, right? And it was a brutal, by the way. But nevertheless, Stalin built the country, and under Stalin's leadership, Soviet people defeated Nazi Germany. So Stalin was very different, man. I would never ever put Stalin and Lenin next to each other, man, because they are different levels. Stalin is much greater person in every possible way as a historical figure, much more important, and did much more good for people in general than Lenin ever even think about. I don't like Lenin, man. What can I say? He was a freaking traitor. That's it. Svetlana Vladimirova is saying, hung only once, some might say you were treasonous for Georgian regime. How? How someone... many did say that in Georgia, many supporters of Saakashvili. That's what they blame me for. But you know why? Because they were regime affiliates, right? Do you know my history, what happened? I mean, literally anything about me? You know why regime had the issues with me? Because I was saying that when Saakashvili authorized using military force in South Ossetia, he acted against constitution of Georgia, because Georgian constitution did not allow armed forces at the time in 2008 when war began. Based on Georgian constitution, army had no right to participate in internal confrontation in a civil war. Army should stay out of it. If Saakashvili's intention truly was to reunite the people of South Ossetia with the rest of the Georgia, then he would use police force. That's a different story. Police force, not the brutality, but diplomacy. And if necessary, maximum police force. But no, his order from Washington was to provoke Russia to get engaged, right? And that's why he used military, even though Georgian constitution prohibited that. It was unconstitutional, right? And afterwards, few months after the August war, Saakashvili and his criminal associates made changes in the constitution to make it legal after the August war, right? So that no one would be able to use this argument that he actually committed crime. Nothing to be said about moral side, by the way. It was I don't know how well you know situation in Georgia in 2007, 2004, 5, in 2000s basically, and how well you know what was happening between Georgian people and Ossetian people. But I know that there was no issues, by the way. There were people almost get together again, right? There was no reason whatsoever to escalate. And the Georgians, for example, if from Tbilisi you wanted to travel in the summer, by the way, to Racha region, people were passing through South Ossetia. People were passing through South Ossetia. There was no issues between the people, right? Despite the previous confrontations and tragedies that had happened, people did manage to nevertheless get together, right? To forgive each other. Process was in a place to forgive each other and reunite, right? But then Saakashvili, under the orders of Washington, provoked her, initially invoke her or reignite the civil war while attacking South Ossetia unconstitutionally and by doing so, committing crime and treason, in my personal opinion, against the people. And the very next day, he authorized attack on Russian peacekeepers because they saw on the first day, by the way, Russian troops did not get engaged, right? And I believe order that Washington gave to Saakashvili was to provoke Russia to act. And that's why late 8th of August, that was a late 8th of August, or already 9th. I mean, so many years passed. But next day, by the way, after Georgian army began assaulting South Ossetia, Saakashvili authorized ordered the Georgian troops to open fire on the peacekeepers, which is an act of war, right? War cry and act of war. So that Russian side, Moscow literally had no choice but to get involved, right? React on this act of war. And my criticism of regime of Saakashvili was based on best interests of Georgia, best interests of people of Georgia, right? So I don't give a damn who will ever say that I betrayed Georgia. I never did it. As long as I was a Georgian citizen, by the way, I did my best to be as good Georgian citizen and as responsible journalist as I could, and that's how I lived. So you tell me if my actions were somehow betrayal of anybody. No, I did everything what was in best interest of Georgia. And the regime did not like it, and eventually, well, rest is a history of my personal life, right? So I see no parallels there. And yet again, Svetlana, we might agree to disagree. It's all okay, right? But I was asked question and I give honest answer. I just give what I think personally, right? I am not a historian. I am not planning to publish book and push my understanding of that episode of history over anything, right? Or anybody. It's just my personal opinion. Svetlana is also commenting when Lenin's criticism of Russian Tsarist regime was for the good of the Russian people, same as you're for the Georgian people. Point is that I did not start civil war, for God's sake, that killed millions. Svetlana, I didn't start civil war and that killed millions of people, and I did not do nothing that destroyed country. It's not the same. You might think that you are right. You might be absolutely sure that your ideology or whatever is correct, and you might even think that you want good for people. right? But you cannot act in a way that will destroy lives of the people that allegedly you care, right? You cannot provoke civil wars, man. You cannot do this, right? I mean, also Svetlana is commenting it was whites that started the civil war, Levan, not Lenin. I mean, after what Bolsheviks did, after execution of the royal family and after execution of many others, I mean, to say that it was whites who started the civil war, I mean, when civil war starts, there is no right and wrong there. It's our citizens of one country that killing each other. No one is right there. It's a tragedy for everybody, right? And the civil wars are most painful and most tragic wars for history of all societies, right? So I'm not gonna argue with you on that, right? But and it was a horrible civil war, as civil war always is, and horrendous crimes were committed on both sides, right? They were not exercising. They were not exercising mercy, to say the least, right? And you know, when it comes to civil war, it's all finished at that point. But no one has a right to destabilize country. That's my point. No one has a right to endanger society, unity of the society. That's my take. You might disagree with me, but you know. Okay, dear friends, okay. With me and Svetlana had an exchange of opinions. We clearly disagree on this historical subject, which is fine. As I said, I'm not a historian, by the way. I'm not gonna claim that I know any better than anyone else, and will never do. I just have my personal take on some topics, and that's how I share my views as a personal view. That is nothing more than personal take. But anyways, thank you, Svetlana, for exchange of opinions, and thank you all, dear friends, for your attention. Let me end the live stream now, dear friends. I wish you great day today and a great weekend in general, and see you tomorrow. Thank you all.